What is up, maniacs, and welcome to Broadened Horizon. This is episode 17. I'm your host, as always, Drake Riggs, here to bring you a special 6-guest lineup for this installment of the show. This episode puts all the focus on the upcoming RIZIN Super Atomweight Grand Prix, which kicks off at this weekend's RIZIN 37 event on July 31st. We will be bringing you conversations with 6 of the 8 fighters set to compete, the lone 2 of which we were unable to gather up in time were Jessica Aguilar and Anastasia Svetkivska. So thanks to all 6 guests and to you, the viewers or listeners. Apologies to those who asked questions for this episode. Time constraints prevented us from getting around to them, but they'll be back for episode 18. Don't you worry. But until then, enjoy the show, you guys, and enjoy the event this weekend. And kicking things off, we have the former RIZIN Super Atomweight Champion, Ayaka Hamasaki. All right, well, Ayaka, always great to chat with you. I feel like we caught up just a couple weeks ago, but it is great to see you again. So just how are you doing today? I saw, did you do some swimming with your dogs earlier? I saw you post something on Instagram.
The house I rent right now has a yard. So has a front yard. It has a yard, so I placed a pool in there, and they're just swimming in that pool.
All right, very fun. I'm sure the dogs are enjoying that a good amount.
そうです。あんまり水が好きじゃないみたいで、いやいや入ってますね。
It seems like the dogs aren't too fond of getting wet, so they're kind of like right now they're kind of being forced to go in there.
All right. Have to make them enjoy the summer a little bit. I hear you. But I also saw that you baked some cookies the other day. Looked pretty good. Are you into baking as well, Ayaka? Is this a hidden talent of yours? How were they?
初めて作ったんですけど。
So actually, it was my first time making cookies, and it was just super easy. All I had to do was pour some batter in a cookie cutter, and yeah, so it's actually not my hobby, but the cookies came out very delicious. So I'm planning to make one today again.
Awesome. So maybe found a new hobby there. I mean, they looked very good in terms of like the shape and all that. So I think a good job there. And I know that fighters, really into food, especially during training camp, and that's something you don't get to enjoy as much of. And for you, Ayaka, I always see you posting a lot of good meals, when you're out with your friends and whatnot. So I'm curious, do you have a favorite meal? Maybe it's a cheat meal or just overall something you enjoy the most when you are able to indulge a little bit.
確かカレーライスがすごい好きで。
Yeah, I really enjoy eating curry rice. And I'm not a good cooker, but I know how to cook curry. And every time I come back from like international fights, that's probably one of the first things that I go out and eat is curry and rice.
All right, so that's a good celebration meal to have, and maybe we can get some of that after this next one. And of course, got the tournament coming up here, Ayaka, so very exciting. And it's very cool for you to be fighting Jessica Aguilar in this opening round, because I know this is something that was supposed to happen, 2011, like 10-ish years ago? Tell me exactly when this was supposed to happen, but it was, because of the earthquake? You guys didn't get to fight way back whenever it was, right?
So yeah, originally I was supposed to fight on 2011, and originally it was a different opponent I was supposed to fight. But my original opponent got injured, and then Jessica was booked as a replacement. So at the time I didn't know too much about her, but I have heard that she is a very tough and a very good fighter. So I was very excited and looking forward for this fight. But unfortunately, the earthquake disaster happened, and the fight was called off. So I still remember being very disappointed that I couldn't fight her and that fight didn't happen.
Yeah, I can imagine. And did it ever get close to happening after that? Obviously she ended up going to the UFC and whatnot, but there was kind of a gap in between that time, where she was still fighting and had some fights over there. So was it ever close after that, or just kind of disappeared?
So yeah, I was expecting that rematch to happen immediately, once things settled, but it was never brought up, and it never happened. And I think right after that, she fought Megumi-san, Fujimegu. So I think she signed with Bellator after that.
Right, and I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because obviously there's the ties there, and I imagine Megumi will probably help you, be in your corner for this one again, as she's been there for the last 2 or 3 now. And I mean, is it kind of there that importance for you to win this, like a little extra boost for Megumi, get a little bit of revenge?
そうですね。今回も、
So yeah, for this fight, I will definitely have Fuji-san and her husband Sasaki-san and our coach Abe-san. These three people will be in my corner. And especially now that Jessica has been confirmed, I haven't really asked Fujimega about how she feels about this fight. But for me, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of feelings and mixed emotions heading into this fight. Obviously, we had the disaster, and it almost feels like I'm rewinding time and going back in time to make this fight happen. And Jessica's fought Fuji-san twice, and the way Fuji-san lost her second fight against Jessica was due to an eye poke. So that was very disappointing. It didn't really feel right. It didn't really settle with me. So for me, I've always felt that I'm the one who has to beat Jessica, and I have this special motivation, and this is definitely a meaningful, special fight for me.
Yeah, it really is a very cool and great story to it, as you just laid out right there. And it's a very good motivation for sure. But at the same time, Ayaka, you have the motivation of trying to snap your first ever losing streak in MMA, unfortunately. So I imagine that's also something that I don't know. Are you thinking about it at all, trying to let that motivate you as well, or is it mostly about everything you just mentioned right there?
そうですね。やっぱ2連敗した直後
Immediately after I lost my second fight in a row, that kind of hit me hard, and I couldn't stop kind of thinking about it. But ever since the Grand Prix has been announced, and ever since my opponent has been confirmed as Jessica, I have absolutely not thought about my trying to break my losing streak. My main focus is on how to beat Jessica and beating Jessica. That has been my motivation and my thought process ever since the fight has been confirmed. So I don't really think about breaking a losing streak or whatsoever.
All right, absolutely. Some good stuff there. And I mean, just as for the entire tournament aspect, Ayaka, you've been there and done that, seen it all in this sport, really. So tournaments are nothing new for you, but it's been a good while since you've been in one, right? Kind of the beginning of your career. So just what is your thought on, tournaments and MMA in general? Is this something that's exciting for you to be a part of again, or is it just kind of like, all right, hey, it's nice to know, who I'll be fighting before potentially you fight them?
For
me, I don't really see the difference. I don't really feel any different than just a single match. But maybe it's a little different because you see the goal. You know exactly where you need to go. You know that your fights are lined up. And especially for this Grand Prix, you only fight once a night, 3 times. So, especially that aspect, there's really no difference, I think. But it's really nice to know that, you can have constant fights, up to 3 fights. So that's a good aspect of it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the fighting, twice in one night, because you did do that in your first tournament, right? Was it the Smack Girl tournament, I think back in the day, right? Was the one that you did do before this. I mean, what was kind of that experience like, fighting twice in one night? Is it kind of, was it fine for you, or, really relieving that you don't have to do that again potentially, this time around?
まだその時は、なんて言うんだろう。
So Drake, I think I've never fought in Smack Girl before. I started my MMA career after Smack Girl. So I believe you're talking about the Jules tournament. My debut was the Jules tournament. And yes, I did fight twice, one night for the semifinals and finals for that Jules tournament. But it was at the very beginning of my career, so I haven't really adjusted to MMA yet. And I was so used, good and bad, I haven't adjusted to MMA. So I was used to fighting several times or competing several times in judo tournaments. So for me, it was just a normal competition of competing so many times in one day from judo. So in that sense, I was early in my career. I just came from judo, and I was just used to competing so many times. So it didn't really feel awkward to me at all. It was just something normal.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. A smooth transition a bit there for you. And yes, I realized right after I said it that Smack Girl and Jules, as much of the history as I know, I get those two confused a little bit sometimes. So apologies there, but yes, indeed. So very interesting stuff. And I know obviously the goal here, Ayaka, is to win the whole tournament and eventually get back your title. I'm sure that'd be nice for you, but is it also important to you to, maybe get that Seika trilogy along the way and, get a win over Izawa if possible, if things line up in this tournament?
もちろんありますし、
of course I want that rematch. I would love to, fight Izawa, but that's if it continue to advance, and that should eventually happen if I continue to advance. But I can't really look past my first opponent because she is a very tough opponent too. I can't really look past her at all. So right now, all I can focus on is on how to beat my first opponent, which is Jessica Aguilar.
Yep, absolutely got to take care of what's right in front of you first of all, and the rest can come. But I think the last time we did talk, Ayaka, was actually right before the rematch with Izawa. So, having had all this time now to look back on it and reflect, I mean, how do you assess that performance? Because it was, still a very good performance from you, even in defeat. You had her in a little bit of a scary spot there in the third round. But just, what did you make of that fight overall, having had time to, reevaluate things?
そうですね。その試合前の
Yeah, so during that fight, I was actually able to execute a lot of the things I worked on a short period of time. Probably around 3-4 weeks, I worked on some things, and I was actually able to execute them during the fight. So in that sense, there were a lot of good takeaways. I felt my growth. I feel like I can still grow. Obviously, there were many things that I couldn't do that I worked on. And I was in a defensive position a lot, but I was still able to execute what I worked on in many situations. So, those are good takeaways. I still feel that I have more to grow, and I feel like I'm in the process of adjusting and changing my fight style that I've been developing for my entire career. But right now I have been implementing new things and trying to change my style, and I would like to keep on challenging, and hopefully I get that opportunity to fight Seika again.
For sure. I mean, it would be another great fight, I would imagine, and just to kind of look at things a little bit, Ayaka, I imagine, of course, you expect to see yourself in the finals and win the whole thing. But when you look at everyone else in the tournament right now, do you think that she would be the likely next person to, do as good as you and meet you there? Is that kind of what you're expecting? Again, not to look ahead, like you said, you got to worry about Jessica Aguilar. But if you were to bet on the next best person to, meet you in the finals, would you think it would be her?
その
so obviously it all depends on how good the Brazilian girl and the Ukrainian girl are. It definitely depends on how their talent and their skill sets. But I do believe that Izawa should be the one making it to the finals.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will definitely have you two as the favorites to win the whole thing, obviously being the two most recent champions and all. But I wanted to ask you about, your thoughts on, and we've talked about it before, the potential RENA fight. And now we're kind of closer than ever with you guys being in a tournament together, and what she said at the press conference that she would only want to fight you if it's in the finals. So there's, that possibility, of course. But just kind of what did you make of, RENA's comments and the possibility of, finally fighting her, possibly?
So obviously, if it was just a super fight, a random single fight, I would prefer not to fight her, for sure. We train together, we have a good relationship, and it's definitely hard to fight a friend. So, but if we meet somewhere in the Grand Prix, hopefully in the finals, if that's the case, we can go head to head, because we have to commit. We're already committed to this Grand Prix. So if that's the case, it's okay. I'll do it. But if RENA and Izawa happen to fight in the semifinals, RENA definitely has that fight, that puncher's chance. Like, she hits hard, and she has the ability to finish fights if she can land her punches. So, if that semifinal matchup happens, there's definitely a chance that she might make it up to the finals. So if that happens, that it is what it is.
I'm glad you mentioned kind of that possible fight too, because that's an interesting one in terms of the story as well, Ayaka. Like it's kind of similar to you and Jessica Aguilar, with you trying to get the win for Megumi and all that, and then RENA would kind of be trying to get the win for you in a way, and then potentially, let's say you were in the other side of that in the finals, it'd be kind of a weird spot for, yeah, you want your friend to win, right? But then you also want to beat Seika yourself. So it's kind of, there's a lot going on there if that happens, right?
伊沢選手とレナがやった場合。
はい。
じゃあもちろん。
If that fight happens against RENA and Izawa, I'll definitely root for RENA, no doubt. I want her to win. I want my teammate to be successful. And I'm sure that I would still have some possibilities, some opportunities to face Izawa sometime down the line. So I'm not too worried about that. So I'll root for RENA, no doubt. And, I want her to be successful, and I want to be successful. So, I wish the best for her, and I want to keep on winning as well and make it to the top.
Of course, and just so many exciting possibilities with this tournament, Ayaka. All the matchups are very fun in the first round, and when it comes to the other ones, for you, just from a viewer perspective, what is the other fight in the first round that you're kind of most looking forward to watching?
そうですね。伊沢選手。
I'm actually interested in the Izawa versus the Brazilian girl matchup. I hear that the Brazilian girl is pretty tough. She's got a BJJ background, and that's her base. So as far as stylistically, I think it might be a bad matchup for Izawa. So I'm definitely interested in that fight.
Yeah, Fontoura is definitely going to be one of kind of the mystery people, and she's got the big fight there with Izawa right in the first round, like you mentioned. So definitely a very interesting one in the first round. But just as for this entire thing, Ayaka, and to wrap up here, you seem like you could still fight forever, and I know you're not really thinking about retirement. I can just tell by the way that you speak and all that. And you were just talking about how you want to feel like you're continuing to even get better and better, and just kind of still adding these new elements. But I gotta wonder, if you really think about it, depending on how things can play out, would winning this tournament be a perfect way to retire? Is that something that's crossed your mind at all?
何も考えてないですけど、確かにその
So I actually haven't thought of anything like that before. I just don't think about it. And but now that you've mentioned it, and now that you've brought it up, it may be a good way to, it may be a good way to call it. And but for me, I don't really want to think about the end while I'm still in it. And it's just something that doesn't occur to me because I'm still in it. And I think I told you this before, but I'll hang them if I feel like I'm done after a fight. After any fight, if I feel like I have nothing more to prove, if I feel like I'm done, I'll be done with it. I'll be gone without telling anybody. So, that's how I feel, and that's how I think I'm going to be.
Well, yes, I want to make it very clear, Ayaka. I don't want you to retire. Don't get me wrong. I want you to keep fighting forever because I love watching you fight. You're one of my favorites. But with all that in mind, though, I'm very curious now, that mentality that you just mentioned right there. Do you think it is even possible, for you yourself, I guess, to retire off of a win, going out on top? We've only seen that happen in very rare cases. People will say GSP, George St. Pierre, and Habib, 29-0, and it's all the good things they did going out on top. Do you think that's even possible for you? Or is it you will have to know that, okay, maybe I can't do this anymore, and it will have to be a loss or something like that?
確かに言われてみればそうですね。いや、全然自分でもわからないですね、本当に。僕は本当にわかんないですね。すいません。そう言われてみればそうだなって思います。
I have to be completely honest, but I have no idea how to answer that question. I just don't know how to. But now that you've mentioned it, you may be right. But again, I have no idea how to respond to that.
Fair enough. I thought that was just a very interesting thing to think about, and especially for someone like you who is, shown no signs of slowing down. It's just an interesting kind of dynamic for, those few fighters who have been able to go out on top. Like, seems like a hard thing to end up doing, to let alone be able to do that and finding kind of the right moment to stop. But again, don't want you to, Ayaka, but just something that came to mind. So all very interesting there. But I think we can leave it there. It is always great getting a chat with you, Ayaka. Always fun, and always looking very much forward to your next fights and whatever you may be doing. So I wish you the best of luck with this tournament. Very excited to see you finally get this opportunity with Jessica Aguilar. And, we'll be watching. I'm sure we'll catch up again in the future down the road. But until then, best of luck and big arigato gozaimasu as always, for taking the time.
ありがとうございます。
Next up, welcome to RIZIN, Laura Fontoura. Great to get to see you, Laura. Obviously, a lot of things going on. A very big opportunity coming up for you here. But just first of all, how are you doing? How are things going as the big fight gets closer?
Eu tô muito feliz, né? E ansiosa logo pra me lutar.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I'm very excited for this fight.
Of course. And are you already in Japan, or are we still waiting to fly on out?
Eu vou viajar na segunda-feira. Eu estou em casa ainda.
Yeah, I'm still at home. I travel on Monday.
All right. Is it going to be your first time there?
Sim, minha primeira vez no Japão.
Yeah, first time in Japan.
All right, I'm sure that's very exciting. Are you planning to do some exploring too, along with, the fight festivities obviously come first, but are you hoping to check things out maybe afterward?
Eu gosto muito de...
Yeah, every time that I travel to a show outside of Brazil, I like to go and visit the places. And we just found out that my husband has a cousin that lives 10 minutes away from Saitama Super Arena. So he'll be there to show us everything. So we're very happy with that.
All right, very convenient. Your own kind of personal tour guide then, right?
É.
All right. Well, before we talk a little bit more about this fight and the opportunity, Laura, I did want to go back to your last fight, though. A very big win against a notable name like Andy Wynn. So congratulations on that one. Good performance by you. Just, having had time to reflect on it, how happy were you with that win? And, how important do you think that was to, get a win like that in your career at this point?
Essa luta minha da Wendy foi
it was
importante.
The fight that opened the doors for me. I knew that how important it was even before the fight. I knew that it had the potential to be a fight that would open doors for me, and really did. Now look at me, I'm fighting the biggest show in the world for my weight class,
Yeah, absolutely. And was it kind of, nice to go, you didn't go the full 5 rounds in that one, but to at least prepare for that and, make it to the 4th round. Do you think it was good to kind of get that experience under your belt too?
Foi como eu falei, né?
Yeah, she took the fight on short notice, so we knew the best game plan for us was to take advantage of the 5 rounds. So we stalled a little bit in the first 2 because that was our game plan, to start like going hard beginning on the 3rd round. So I was able to do it, and I was able to get the submission in the 4th.
Já finalizei.
That leads everything to RIZIN now, which is an awesome platform, a very big one here for you, getting to be a part of the tournament. So much going into it. Like, just how exciting is this overall opportunity for you? And is it kind of, happening at the right time? Were you surprised when you got this offer? Like, tell me about kind of the reaction to everything happening so quickly.
Sim, porque eu comecei a lutar com...
Yeah, I always pictured that, my first MMA fight was when I was 17 years old. And I really envisioned that it would be even sooner that I would end up in a big show. But it only took that long because in Brazil it's so difficult to fight opponents for me. So, but yeah, it wasn't really surprising to be here and to be in a show like RIZIN at 21,
Yeah, but I'm sure maybe the tournament aspect might be a little surprising. It's always a special thing for, Japanese MMA to have these tournaments. And this is only the 2nd one that RIZIN has done for the women. So, like, what were your thoughts when you heard that aspect of things? Was it more exciting for you, or maybe a little more pressure? How do you view that whole dynamic?
Caraca, eu nem acreditei.
Yeah, it didn't feel real, it was too perfect to be true. When I got the message saying that I was gonna be in the RIZIN Grand Prix, I even dropped my phone. I was even afraid that I had cracked it. And now I just found out this week that I'm in the main event of this week's show. So it's even a bigger dream coming true. So everything is aligning perfectly. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's kind of hard to say you're not in the biggest fight to kick things off here. You're taking on the champion, so it's practically like a title fight for you. And if you win, you might not necessarily get the title, but everyone's going to view you as the champion, Laura. So taking on Seika Izawa, I mean, have you watched some of her fights in preparation for this? Just what do you think of the champion and who everyone considers, the best atomweight in the world right now?
Ela é considerada a rainha lá, né?
Yeah, she's considered the queen there, but I'm going there to take the throne. You can be sure of that. This opportunity that my team put in my hand, I'm not going to miss it. I'm going to make the most out of it.
Of course. And I'm very curious what you think of the matchup stylistically, though, because it's one where you guys are both two very good grapplers, obviously in different kind of areas, right? You with your jiu-jitsu and her with her wrestling and judo. And sometimes when we get those matchups, two very good grapplers, it ends up being, a big striking match. But do you think that this one will go and test each other on the ground, or are you going to try and mix it up? What are you kind of expecting out of it in terms of the actual styles clash?
Olha, eu tô preparada para tudo.
I'm ready for anything, If she wants to take me down, I love to be on the bottom, so it's no problem for me. If I need to take her down, I was the Brazilian champion in wrestling a few years ago, so it's okay for me. If she wants to stand up, I have 9 Muay Thai fights in my belt as well, so it's all good. I'm ready for anything that she wants to propose. I'm going to this fight open-minded and ready to fight on her game plan and frustrate her on her game plan.
Yeah, that just makes everything all the more exciting for the fans to watch, no doubt about it. But kind of from the mental side of things, Laura, I'm curious, do you feel like maybe any pressure going into this matchup as your first fight in RIZIN, part of the tournament, taking on the champion, the main event, all these things we've already talked about? Does that kind of have any nerves for you, or do you think maybe more the pressure is on her because there's the expectations from the champion, to go out there, win the whole thing? I mean, just how are you looking at it from a pressure perspective?
A pressão é que eu quero ganhar.
Yeah, I'm more than feeling the pressure, I'm feeling confident. I'm a really positive person, and I believe in my game a lot. If I didn't believe I was able to win the whole thing, I had no reason to go to Japan. I'm not going there to just fight. I'm going there to win it all. So I really believe that the pressure is all on her, but not because she's the champion or anything, but because she's facing the toughest girl in the tournament.
Oh, yeah, definitely makes sense from that point of view. And this will be your first fight at atomweight in MMA, at least, right, Laura? So I'm curious, was it something you wanted to do earlier in your career, fight at atomweight, and there were just no opportunities, or was it like this one arrived and you couldn't pass it up? Like, how is the whole weight cut going, and just everything around the decision to kind of take the atomweight opportunity?
Eu não sofro muito para perder peso.
Yeah, I don't really cut much weight. To make atomweight, I cut around 15 pounds. So it's not a hard cut, I'm not suffering, it's going to be easy for me. And yeah, my plan is that in the future, the UFC opens up an atomweight division, and I want to be one of the mega stars in that division already by then.
Yeah, that would definitely be very cool. We'll have to keep waiting for that one, but that's a great goal indeed to have. And I know a lot of other atomweights are wanting that as well, so we'll have to wait and see. But in terms of the tournament still, Laura, like a lot of great fighters also in this thing, some good matchups along with yours in this first round. I'm curious, is there one outside of your own fight in this first round that you're kind of most looking forward to watching, just whether it's from a fan perspective or, people you're interested in seeing advance? Which fight are you most excited for?
Eu tô interessada em todas as lutas.
Yeah, I really liked all the matchups. So I can't really pinpoint one fight right now, but after this first round, I'll be there to see everything live. I'll definitely be able to tell you who impressed me the most.
Absolutely. That'll be the most fun of the whole thing, is getting to assess everybody on the same night. So that's the good fun part about tournaments. But, it's been quite a path to get here, Laura. You're on a great run, undefeated and all. But want to go back a little bit to, how you got into combat sports in the first place. Like, did you get pushed there a little bit from like family members, people you knew, or just saw some fighting one day and you're like, I want to try that? How did you get into the sport in the first place?
Eu comecei treinando porque
Me and my brother, we would cause chaos at our home. So our dad decided that we need to do something else. And then he decided to put us to train jiu-jitsu. But when my dad went to the gym, he's like, you know what? I'm going to train as well. So the three of us started to train together. And after a while, my brother decided to become an MMA fighter. And he did it. And I said, oh, I want to do this too, So when I turned 17, my dad, he gave me my birthday present was a fight. And I had my pro debut when I was 17 years old, and I'm here right now,
Wow, all right. That's very cool. A total family affair then. I mean, could you imagine, still getting to this point in your career, if it wasn't for your family? I mean, of course, you could still do it, off by yourself, but do you think it was really helpful to kind of have that, camaraderie and, companionship with them getting things started?
Não, porque meu pai é meu sparring.
Yeah, I can imagine it because my dad's been my sparring for this fight, My dad is a jiu-jitsu black belt, my husband is a jiu-jitsu black belt, and my coach. So they are my two closest training partners. So without family, I would be nowhere.
Well, all right, then I want to give you a hard question, Laura. I mean, if you never got into MMA, then what do you think you'd be doing right now instead?
Aí eu acho que eu tinha feito uma faculdade mesmo para me ser professora.
I think I would be a teacher. I think I would go to college and study to be like elementary school teacher.
Okay, all right, very cool. And do you have any, hobbies outside of MMA, maybe other sports you're interested in or things like that?
O que eu gosto de fazer mais é dançar.
Yeah, I like to dance a lot. I like to go out to clubs to dance, to dance some Brazilian music. I like to hang out with my family at our farm, That's some of the other stuff I like.
All right, very cool. I mean, hey, there could have been a dancing career at some point. Maybe the teaching, if that didn't work out, who knows? But you don't have to worry about that. So the MMA thing is going pretty darn well, and I look forward to this RIZIN debut for you, Laura. It's going to be a very fun tournament. I think we can wrap up there, but I appreciate it so much. Been very fun watching your career to this point, and look forward to seeing everything that comes down the line. But a big congratulations again on getting this opportunity. I wish you the best of luck with the first round fight and, hopefully advancing and going on to do great things. But just a big, thank you so much for taking the time. Big obrigado, right? But I'll let you get on with the rest of things and safe travels to Japan as well. I hope you get to see a lot of cool things while you're there too.
Muito obrigada.
Then we go on to her opponent, the current RIZIN Super Atomweight champion, Seika Izawa. All right. Well, hey, great to see you again, Seika. Feel like we caught up not too long ago. I mean, so just what have you been up to lately? Been watching your YouTube stuff. Looks like fun. Just how are you doing here on Wednesday?
はい。YouTube とかで
So
は
yeah,
楽し
obviously
そう
on
な
YouTube I look like
や
I'm
ってる
having
んです
fun,
け
but
ど、
now
最
that
近はやっぱ
the
り試合
fight
も
is
決まって
confirmed,
追い込みの日々で、今日もこの後
I've
練
been
習
I've
し
been
て、
working
また
hard
夜も練習あるの
towards
で、
my
すごい
fight,
きついですね。
and actually after this interview I'm going to head over to the gym and train, and I've been pushing myself, and it's been pretty tough on my body lately.
All right. Yeah. I mean, time to get serious, right? Fight camp is underway. But yeah, I mean, it looks like you're having fun. So I imagine that you actually have been having fun with it, right? And it seems like you've been doing more and more YouTube stuff, at least posting about it more that I've seen. So just has that been a fun thing for you? And what kind of made you want to do it a little bit more?
そうですね。やっぱり、自分の好き
Yeah,
な
so
こ
I
とを
think
や
I
る
look I'm
の
having
で
fun. I
楽し
look like
い
I'm
なっ
having
て
fun
思い
because
ま
I'm
す。
doing
で、
what I like to do.
YouTube を始めたきっ
So
かけは、
I'm sure it appears that
そう
way.
ですね。
And
チャンピオ
as
ン
far
にな
as
っ
the
て、
reason why I started
そういう
the
資格と
YouTube
か、
channel is
格闘技
because
をもっと
I
広め
became
て
the
いきたいなっ
champion,
ていうことで、
and
知らない人でも
I just
簡単に
want
手
I
軽
just
に
want
見れる
people to
よう
know
な
more
ツールで、
about
格
women's
闘技
MMA
以外
and
の
what we
面も
do,
見せていけたら、
and I
そういう
want
人たちも
to
もっと格闘技にも興味が
show
出るのかなって
the
思って
appeal
YouTube
of
を始
martial
めま
arts,
した。
combat sports. So, instead of just talking about fight stuff, I want to reach out to the mass, the wide variety of people. I try to put on content where not only fight fans, but just regular people can watch, and hopefully that becomes, some kind of a trigger for them to get into combat sports. So that's kind of why I started the YouTube channel to promote women's MMA and combat sports.
All right, makes sense. And I think you're off to a great start and, doing a good job. Excited to see what you got coming in the future. But of course, Seika, let's talk about the tournament and what we got coming up here, because I know this is what you wanted. So how exciting is it for you to actually get to be a part of this tournament? You pretty much, you made it happen. You put it into existence.
そうですね。自分のイメージ的には、
So at first I thought, I was assuming this was going to be an all Japanese tournament, but it turned out to be a World Grand Prix. So that was a surprise for me, and it was a very pleasant surprise for me. And for me, facing international competition means that I'll get more eyes on my fights, more exposure. So I'm genuinely very excited and happy about this tournament, World Grand Prix happening. And my opponent for the first round is a Brazilian girl. She's a finisher, and I'm excited to see how I can perform against her.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking forward to it. And, she does have that good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style. And I'm sure that's an exciting thing for you to kind of go against and, test yourself in that area, because you're also a very good grappler. So are these kind of matchups ones you like maybe a little bit more than facing strikers, or do you have a preference at all? How do you look at it?
そうですね。
I really have no preference against any matchups, but the simple fact is that she is a good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and I'm excited to be able to showcase a high-level grappling skills, high-level grappling fight in this upcoming fight. So thinking about that is very exciting.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting, Seika, to kind of see the positions of this fight. And I'm curious, from your perspective, if you think that she's going to feel a lot of pressure in this spot, because it's kind of similar to, when you made your debut facing the champion on a big stage. This is a part of a tournament. Now she's facing the champion and yourself. Like, do you see the similarities there? And do you think it could be kind of a high pressure situation for her?
そうですね。いや、でも、
I think that the fact is she's undefeated. She's on a roll. She's riding the winning streak, and she's probably very confident in her abilities. So I think for a fighter with that kind of mentality and with that kind of accomplishments, I don't think the situation is going to add that pressure in a negative way.
Of course, well put. And I mean, I got to ask you then, Seika. Being the champion, like, you kind of have the target on your back. You already got called out a little bit by RENA saying she wants to fight you. And so, I mean, do you kind of feel any pressure, I guess, being the presumed favorite to win since you are the champion and, have that target?
そうですね。向こうから
from their perspective, they might see a target on my back, but from my perspective, I'm just focused on winning every fight that's put in front of me. So, they have their own perspective, but I have my perspective, and that's, only to look forward and winning the fights one by one. So I don't really feel any pressure.
Seika, I'm sure tournament formats are nothing new to you, with your backgrounds in judo and wrestling, but it'll be your first one in MMA, right? So, and some of the other competitors have already fought in MMA tournaments before. And so that makes me curious, like, do you think people who have fought in these tournaments before have an advantage at all? Is that something that you think should be considered, or, you'll be fine just as is having competed in your other sports, of course?
そうですね。トーナメントなんですけど、一試合一試合。
Although this is a tournament, each fights are spaced out, and you only fight one fight at a time. So although the format is a tournament, I don't think I have any disadvantages over people who have fought in the tournament.
Yeah, that's fair. And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, do you prefer it that way, where you don't have to fight multiple times in one night, or would you just prefer to get everything over with all at once?
そうですね。やっぱりいいパフォーマンスを見せる。
So when you consider, delivering a good performance, I think focusing on one fight per night is the way to go. So I would definitely prefer one fight, fighting one fight over fighting twice in one night, because that way, you'd be able to give your best, give my best for that fight each time, and I get to prepare myself for a specific opponent, and come up with solid game plans for that specific fight. So I would definitely prefer to fight one fight over twice in one night.
Yeah, totally makes sense there. And, Seika, you fought 4 times last year. And if you were to win all of the fights here in the tournament, then you'll have fought again 4 times this year. So I'm curious, like, what is your ideal number of fights per year? Do you like the 4? Would you like to have more?
そうですね。怪我がなければ。
I would like to fight as much as I can if I don't have any injuries. So I don't really have a preference on how many times I fight per year. But if I am healthy and without any injuries, I'd like to fight every month if possible. So, I don't really have too many preferences.
Well, that would certainly be a cool record to possibly have fighting every month, but that'll be a tricky one to organize. But just as for the rest of the tournament, Seika, in this first round, a lot of great matchups. So I'm curious, from your perspective, being the champion and, just a fan of MMA, what is the other fight, aside from your own, in the first round that you're kind of most looking forward to here?
そうですね。パクシュー選手と朝倉環奈選手。
Yeah, so I'm definitely most interested in the Siu Park versus Kanna Asakura fight. The reason is because I've trained with Kanna before, I fought Park before. Pretty much I've faced both of them before, so I know what they can do, what they're capable of. So it's just very curious to see what kind of fight it's going to turn out to be.
Yeah, that is going to be a good one indeed. And now I got to put you on the spot, Seika. Do you have a prediction for who will win it?
難しいんですけど、判定だったら朝倉環奈選手が勝って、KO だったらパクシュー選手が勝つかなって思います。
It's definitely a hard one, but if it goes to decision, I believe Kanna would win. And if there's a finish by strikes, I think Park would win.
And aside from yourself, Seika, who would you kind of say is the most dangerous person in the tournament?
そうですね。やっぱり、肌を合わせて強かった浜崎選手は強いのかなって思います。
Yeah, I would definitely like to say, because I fought her and I know her capabilities, I would say Hamasaki is the most dangerous.
Yeah, and we talked to Hamasaki just the other day, and she believes that you two will be in the finals. You'll have your third fight at the end of this tournament. Do you think that's a good possibility there of how things will shake out?
そうですね。順当に勝ち上がっていけば。
So if things go as it is on paper, the possibilities of me fighting Hamasaki in the finals would have the greatest chance. And that's what I believe.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be fun to see it all shake out. But I also wanted to get your thoughts on something outside of the tournament recently, Seika. I mean, we also spoke to Mori Suda, who just made her RIZIN debut, and a good performance there, getting another armbar against Nisei. And, she said she's trained with you before, and she's kind of another very young, talented, atom weight rising up. And just curious to know what your thoughts are on her and her potential in the atom weight division as she continues to get older and, get more experience, because she's very, very young, obviously.
そうですね。やっぱり下からの決めが。
So obviously she can finish from the bottom. And she's very technical. But obviously she's still in high school and she doesn't have that physical strength. It's not with her yet. So when you consider she's going to get stronger, physically stronger, which gives her more arsenals from the bottom, and she'll be able to finish a lot more fights. When you consider that, she's going to be definitely a threatening force in the atomweight division.
So I think you're kind of confirming to us, Seika, that what she said, and she said that you beat her up a lot when you trained together, so she wasn't lying.
そうですね。はい、まだ力がそんなにないので、なんとかって感じですね。
So yes, I mean she's not she's not the strongest. She doesn't have the physical strength yet. So in that terms, I was able to get in a better position.
Of course, fair enough there. And just as for kind of assessing fights and fighters, Sek, I know that you've done some commentary for Deep Jewels recently, right? And I wanted to ask you, has that been a fun thing for you to do? Is that something you're interested in doing more of when those opportunities present themselves down the line?
そうですね。すごい
Yeah, you know, I really enjoyed the commentary gig because, you know, I get to talk and I get to analyze and break down fights and situations. And I think my goal is for future commentary is that I would want to get into more deep details in the technical situation, and I want to be able to explain to the non-core MMA fans to be able to understand what's going on, like breaking down what they're feeling right now, their emotions, their mentality. And, you know, for me, I feel like I want to be able to explain the situation to non-MMA fans.
Yeah, and I mean, you have a great insight to do that. So was it something you reached out about doing, or did they kind of come to you for it?
そうですね。最近はジュースの方から、チャンピオンになったっていうこともあって、解説に呼んでくださることが多いですね。
Yeah, so most recently, well, for recent offers, ever since I became the champion, you know, Deep Jewels would definitely give me the offer to commentate.
All right, very cool and well-deserved, multi-talented individual, Seika. So very exciting to see, but don't want to keep you too long because I know you got to do your training. So we can wrap it up there. It is always great getting to chat with you, champ. So I appreciate it greatly. And I'm very, very excited to see this tournament unfold. Very excited to see you fight all the time. Wishing you the best of luck. Hope things go all smooth. And you can get back to making YouTube videos after, but that'll obviously be on the back burner while the tournament unfolds. But I just appreciate it so much, Seika. And big arigato gozaimashita as always for chatting here.
ありがとうございました。
Welcome back to the show, Kanna Asakura. All right, well, thanks so much for joining me, Kanna. It's been a while since we caught up, so I appreciate you taking the time so much. So first of all, I just got to know, how are you doing? How's the Wednesday treating you?
Yeah, the fight has finally been announced, and my fight camp has been great so far, so I'm doing great. I can't complain.
Love to hear it. And I saw that you were out by the water the other day on Instagram, posted some pictures. You enjoying the summer weather before the camp started?
そうですね。夏を楽しむっていうよりもしっかりオフを取ったっていう感覚ですね。
So that wasn't about you know, enjoying summer or whatnot, but I just took a fine break from training. So that's what it was.
All right. Yeah, always good to, you know, soak up the rays whenever, though. So very nice to see. And before we get into tournament talk, Kanna, which is always exciting, I want to go back to your last fight, though. A good win over Sarame. You know, you snapped the little losing streak you had there, so I'm sure that felt good, but haven't had time to reflect on that win against Sarame. How do you feel about the performance and just that fight overall? Congrats on the win, by the way.
そうですね。自分的にはこう負けが
So yeah, that fight was I went in there on a losing streak. Obviously, I was riding a losing streak, and I went in there, and it was a fight that I could not lose. I just couldn't drop it. And so heading into the fight, it was more of a mentally tough fight than usual, with, you know, because of the pressure I had. But I went in there, fought, and I was able to get the win. So I'm not too happy with my performance overall, but it's more of a relief that I was able to get out of the losing streak.
Yeah, I can imagine that it definitely felt good. And I mean, just as for her as an opponent, did she surprise you with any challenges that maybe it'll caught you off guard in the fight?
So
I expected Sarame to come forward a little more, like I expected her to be way more aggressive in the fight, but you know, that wasn't the case. She held back a lot. She was more she held more distance than I thought. So, you know, it is what it is, but I was able to go in there and execute my plan to get the win, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, very much so. It all worked out in the end, so a good win indeed. And now we're on to the tournament, Kanna. Your second tournament, of course, you won the first one back in 2017, a memory that, of course, no one will ever forget who was watching. So you've been here before. I mean, how excited are you to compete in another tournament? Does it feel like, you know, familiar territory for you?
Yeah, so this is the second Women's Grand Prix that RIZIN has held, and for me to be able to take part of it, I'm extremely happy. And although the level of competition for this Grand Prix is so much higher than the last one. It's a totally different Grand Prix than the last one. And, I'm just happy to be able to take part of it and continue to challenge myself against tough competition.
Absolutely. And do you think the fact that, you've competed in one before gives you and having won the whole thing, gives you the advantage over everybody else?
So, I just realized during the press conference that most of the participants have already participated in tournaments before. So I don't really feel that, I have an advantage over anybody. And plus, the last Grand Prix, I had to fight twice in one night, but this one is already set. We all fight once for each opening round, semifinals, and finals. So the dates are set. So in that way, it's just so much easier to get ready for, and I don't really feel a specific advantage over anybody else.
Well, yeah, I wanted to obviously ask you about the fact that there won't be two fights in one night, and like how relieving that is maybe for you, and just how stressful it might have been the first time. I'm sure it feels good to, not have to worry about two people in one night this time, potentially.
Yeah, so when I had to prepare for the Grand Prix semifinals and finals in 2017, you had to practice for several opponents, potential opponents, and you would have to have several variations of game plans. And you would also have to calculate how to use your stamina so you don't get too tired for the finals. So there's a lot of additional factors, which made fight camp a lot more complicated than a single fight. But on fight day, I was able to finish my opponent in the semifinals, and I was able to advance to the finals fairly healthy without any damage. So for me, I actually felt better in the finals because I was able to move my body, loosen up a little before, and get myself prepared for the finals. I actually felt much better in the finals. I've competed in wrestling tournaments before, and you compete 4 or 5 times a day in wrestling tournaments. So I was used to that format. But the fact is, there's a lot more preparation to do, and it just all depends on how the semifinals goes. And for 2017, I was able to get everything towards my way.
You sure were. And again, like I said, a moment we'll never forget. Great win there over RENA in the finals. But we got to worry about Siwoo Park here in the next one, opening up the round here, Kanna. And I mean, it's somebody you've trained with before. So I'm curious, your thoughts on this matchup and just what you make of Park. Obviously a very talented individual herself.
Yeah, so she helped me get ready for the Sarami fight. So I was not expecting to be able to be facing her so quickly. So, at first I had some mixed feelings, but now that the fight's confirmed, I took the fight, she took the fight, it's a fight. So I'm going to go in there and do my best to defeat a tough opponent.
Have you guys talked at all since the fight was announced and you guys, knew you were facing each other?
No, I have not.
All right. I'm sure you probably don't want to get too close and friendly with the upcoming enemies, right?
Yeah, I'm sure she's coming in. She's coming into this fight with the same mentality as me. And I'm sure she had, this fight was bound to happen sometime down the line. And we both knew it. So, it's the matter of when. And it happened. So, the fight's a fight. Relationship is a totally separate thing. So we're both committed. We're both going in there to get the win.
Business as usual, right? So going to be exciting to see. I think this is the most exciting matchup probably in the first round, in my opinion. And, I did mention RENA, so I want to know what you thought of her performance against RENA in her, last fight that was the debut that she had in RIZIN, right? So a good performance there. Some people thought RENA should have won, but just what'd you make of that whole fight?
Before the fight, being training with Park, I knew that she had really good striking and she hits very hard. And I knew that she was going to be able to hold her own against RENA. which she did. And I think RENA had more. There was a bit of a size difference. And I think she struggled with that just a little bit. But watching the fight overall, I think Park did what she did. Did what she needed to do to get that win. So it was fair.
And a lot of good fights here coming up in the first round, though, as I mentioned. So from your perspective, Kanna, just being a fan of the sport and having fought, several of these women already, what is the other fight in the first round that you're most looking forward to?
そうですね。どれかな。まあ自分もそんなに
So as far as the new contenders, I don't know too much about them, so I can't really speak about them. And for me, from my point of view, like I'm focused more on who is going to advance, more of which fight I'm more interested in. I'm more interested in who and how they are going to advance. Considering me advancing to the next round, so that's what I'm more focused about than each individual matchup.
All right, makes sense. And with that in mind, who are you kind of viewing as, aside from yourself, the most dangerous person in the Grand Prix here, Kanna?
難しいですね。でも自分は
I actually think that Siu Park is the most dangerous opponent out of all participants. So I think this fight's it's going to be a very tough fight. But if I can overcome my upcoming fight, if I can beat Park, I think I will be able to catch that momentum to make it all the way to the top. And so for me, Park is definitely the most dangerous opponent. Obviously I fought Hamasaki, I fought RENA before. I don't know too much about the international fighters, and I've never fought Izawa before. But I think this Grand Prix itself is a great opportunity for all of us to be able to test our skills against one another, because obviously there are favorable matchups, there are non-favorable matchups, depending on what your style is. So I think even for me to face Izawa, it would be a great challenge and test for me to test my abilities. I know that in some areas I'm better than her. In certain areas, she's better than me. So I think this overall Grand Prix is a great opportunity for all of us to be able to test case our skills and take ourselves to the next level. So I'm very excited in that aspect for this Grand Prix.
Very well said. And, this might be an obvious question since Izawa is the champion, but would you say that she's who you're most interested in facing out of everyone in this tournament?
そうですね。まあやってみたいなって思いますけど。
Yeah, it would be nice to face Izawa, but from my personal hope is that I would want to fight Hamasaki again, and that's what I want to do. That's my preference. But I think this Grand Prix, there is no bracket, and I think they're going to match make after the semifinals as well. So you don't know who you're going to face. So for me, I think it's very important to be able to win each fight that's put in front of me and continue to win. That will determine who I fight next, and hopefully I get the fights I want.
Yeah, and your last fight with Ayaka was definitely very close indeed. A very, very good fight, one of the best of that year. And so I'm curious, having fought Ayaka twice now, Kanna, what did you think of Izawa's wins over her? I mean, they were very impressive and, big upsets, especially the first one, because it was only her 5th fight, and she has only been fighting for, less than 2 years. So, I mean, just what did you think of her performances against Hamasaki?
そうですね。まあ本当1回目の
So obviously the first match was just nothing but shocking. It was extremely shocking, and that New Year's Eve event, I wasn't invited. I didn't participate in it, so I had really mixed feelings about that too. Overall, in their second meeting, we actually fought on the same card. I fought before they did, so I got the win. I was relieved, and I was trying to enjoy the moment, but watching their fight just got me into despair. The level of competition is so very high, and for me, knowing that if I'm going to make it if I want myself to get back into the title line, I would have to face these two, and it was kind of a really shocking moment as well. It was a very high level fight and extremely technical. So I think that both fighters are great, and Izawa is definitely, she has the momentum, and she's on a roll.
Yeah, and I like that you kind of mentioned the high level aspect of, those two fighters in particular, because it's very interesting kind of when you look at both of the Grand Prix that you're now participating in, the one you won and this one, you were kind of like the underdog a little bit. At least everyone mostly thought, RENA was going to go on and win that year, and then you kind of spoiled the party. And this time around, people are talking more maybe about Hamasaki and Izawa being the finals again, and you're kind of underdog a little bit in a way once more. So do you kind of like that, or is it a little bit upsetting to you, motivating? How do you view that whole kind of dynamic?
Yeah, so I actually, back in 2017, I knew myself that the Grand Prix was made for RENA. It was a Grand Prix for RENA, by RENA, and she even said it herself. So I knew that I didn't get any of the spotlight. She was getting all the spotlight, and I was underdog, which is fine. And I kind of understand that for this one, the level is definitely high, and there's definitely favorites, and I'm not one of them. I understand that situation, and the thing is though, like, I think I perform much better under those situations. I thrive under those situations. I kind of like to fly under the radar where I don't have the spotlight on me. So to answer your question, I think I like it because I can fly under the radar and I don't have too much pressure, so I can do what I want to do, and I think I perform better that way.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it the first time, right? So I think that's a great point to mention indeed. So we'll be very excited to see how it all shakes out, Kanna. But until then, I'm taking plenty of your time. So I'll leave you with one last thing here, kind of a fun little hypothetical I want to give you here. When it comes to, any fighter, past or present, that you would have most loved to have fought or could get to fight that maybe you can't. Is there somebody that comes out, maybe a favorite or inspiration of yours, past or present, that you would have loved to fight or, fight if they're still around?
So, I always have this thing where I want to get back to people who I've lost to. So obviously there's Oshima, there's Miyu, but out of all the opponents I've lost to, I would really want to face Alicia Garcia again, if possible.
All right. Okay. So I didn't see that one coming, but hey, you never know. Maybe that opportunity can be there someday, Kanna. But yeah, looking for revenge. That's always a fun thing to see. But until then, got to worry about Siwoo Park first. So I wish you the best of excuse me. Wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to see this fight. Can't wait to see all the fights, the whole tournament. Great getting to catch up with you again. It's been a while. Always looking forward to your fights. So just thank you so much for taking the time. Big arigato gozaimashita. And, wish you all the best, Kanna.
ありがとうございました。
Next up, it's Kanna's opponent, Siwoo Park. All right. Well, it is fantastic to see you today, Siwoo. I hope you are doing well. Been seeing the training. Looks like it's going well, going hard from what you've been sharing on Instagram. I mean, just how are you doing today as the fight and the tournament gets closer?
지금 몸 상태는 아주 좋은 상태고요.
I feel great. Fight camp has been great. I've got about a week to go to get myself conditioned, but I'm in the phase of getting my body prepared, and I will be ready.
Very exciting. Looking forward to it. And I know we caught up after your big win over RENA, Siwoo, but now having, had extra time, I'm curious, has the popularity boost been kind of big for you? Have you noticed a change in, people maybe recognizing you a little bit more since that big win you had in your RIZIN debut?
아무래도 일본에서
Yeah, so since I fought in Japan in a Japanese promotion, I do feel that I've gained more fans and recognitions throughout Japanese fans and in Japan, but not so much in my home country or, elsewhere outside of Japan.
Okay. All right. And I mean, makes sense there for sure. And you had a fight since then as well. Got another good win over Eric Koga in one of the deep cards. Just looking back on that performance, were you happy with that win? And did it go kind of according to plan? Obviously you got the win, but how it went down, was it all according to plan?
사실 시합 내용은
Yeah, for me personally, I'm not too satisfied with my performance. There's a lot of takeaways. There's a lot of things that I know I need to improve in my game that I found out from that fight.
All right. So then does that kind of give you a little bit of extra motivation then that you weren't, as happy with it, and now you really want to go out there and especially make a stamp in the very first round of the tournament coming up here?
저는 매 시합마다
Okay, so for me, I don't really try to let my previous performances affect my future fights. When I fight, the fights, it's done, and I try to focus on forward my fights moving forward. So that's the kind of mentality I'm in when I prepare for fights. So right now, I'm just solely focused on fighting Kanna Asakura. I've trained with her a few times, and with that being said, I do think that this fight, I can show a little more of my natural self instead of being, more of a calculated fighter.
I mean, tournaments are nothing new for you, Siwoo. You were a part of the Deep Jewels one that happened last year. So how exciting is it for you just to get to be a part of something like this? Kind of amplified and on a bigger stage, obviously, and a worldwide platform with worldwide fighters in RIZIN. Just like how exciting is that to be a part of?
일단은 제가 라이진 무대에
So most of all, I'm just very happy to be able to fight in RIZIN again. Because in Korea, there aren't too many opportunities for me to fight in front of a big crowd, to basically be able to showcase my skills of my everyday work and what I put into in front of a mass crowd. So, RIZIN enables me to do that. I get to fight in front of a big crowd to showcase my skills. So that's a really good thing. And for me to take my career to the next level, I think I'm at a point where I have to take on international competition. I have to take on the world's best. And, that's exactly what I'm getting here in this tournament. So, and I do feel confident that I can win this entire thing.
시합 때 보여줄 수 있으면 우승도 할 수 있지 않을까라는 자신을 하고 있습니다.
Yeah, definitely. One of the better out of the bunch, and there's a lot of good talent in there. And you already mentioned Kanna Asakura, who you're taking on, Siwoo. And I think a lot of people will say that you're in the most exciting fight of the opening round. This matchup between you two of the best in the world. And you fought a lot of different styles throughout your career already. So I'm curious, just what do you make of this matchup? Like, how fun is it for you? Especially somebody like Kanna, who is, she won the very first RIZIN tournament, and now she's looking to do so again. But just what do you make of this fight, like matchup wise and, overall, magnitude, I guess, for your career?
요즘에 운동하는 MMA
so when you talk about styles, you always talk about the background that each fighter has, like wrestling, striking. For Japanese fighters, a lot of judo fighters. But I do think that in recent MMA, there's a lot of fighters who have MMA as a background these days. The sport has grown, and so when you talk about style, like wrestling versus striker. The strikers always have the disadvantage. That's just a conception. That's a conception of what people get. But for me, I think this fight is more going to be MMA versus MMA, and I'm not worried about the backgrounds. I'm not worried about the style. I think it's about how the fighter responds to every situation that they're given, they're put in during the MMA fight. So for me, I don't really care about the style, and I don't really care for what kind of background my opponents have. So this is going to be an MMA fighter versus MMA fighter in an MMA fight. So that's how I look at this fight.
크게 작용하지는 않는 것 같거든요. 제 생각에는 너무 이게 레파토리가 정해져 있다 보니까.
Well, I really like that perspective. And, with all that in mind, I'm curious, Siwoo, you've already fought some of the other fighters in the Grand Prix as well. Obviously, Seika Izawa, the champion, and RENA, who you defeated. I'm curious, from your perspective, with all that in mind, like I said, who would you feel is the most dangerous, opponent in this tournament, aside from yourself, of course?
사실 외국 선수들은
Yeah, to be completely honest, I don't know anything about the other international fighters. So based off of the fighters who I know, it's probably going to be, Hamasaki, who has the most significant accomplishments. She's been the champion for so long, and all of her, her experience and accomplishments just shows that I think she's the biggest threat outside of me.
Okay, very interesting. Well, with that answer, Siwoo, I got to ask then, even though Seika Izawa defeated Hamasaki twice, you still think that she isn't quite as dangerous? And having, fought her yourself too. All right, fair enough. And just speaking of the other matchups, Siwoo, like, which one are you most excited for, just from a kind of a fan perspective, and obviously be watching closely as a competitor to see who you might be facing. But is there one of the other fights that you're most interested in?
사실 외국 선수들을 아무도 몰라서.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, like outside of my fights, it's all Japanese versus international fighters. And for me, I don't really know much about these international fighters, so that's just something very interesting. I can't really predict. I don't really know what to expect from these fights. So I think that itself makes this Grand Prix very interesting. With Japanese fighters and international fighters, with the lack of information, finally revealing their potential in this tournament. So that itself makes this entire tournament very intriguing.
Yeah, certainly a great point. And I wanted to talk to you about a fight that happened outside of the tournament recently. With two fighters I know you're quite familiar with. Saori Oshima and Miyu Yamamoto. That was a very close and a very good fight. I'm just kind of curious, having the relationships that you do have with both of them in obviously very different ways. What did you make of that fight? Do you think that Miyu should have got the win? And I guess just general thoughts on that one, because it was very close.
조금 애매한 부분이.
So from my point of view, I know it was a very, very close fight, close decision. But I definitely had it that I think Yamamoto had slight edge and should have got the nod.
Yeah, a very close one, like I said. And, sometimes you can't argue in those cases. But, yeah, it was very interesting and fun to watch regardless. But, all right, Siwoo, I will leave you with one last thing here. I appreciate you taking the time so much. But I guess just kind of springboarding off of Miyu, someone who you've been training with, like a very inspirational figure for the fact that she's still able to compete at the highest level when she's nearly 50 and a grandmother and all of these crazy things that she's been able to do. But for you, I'm curious, like, do you have any inspirations or favorite fighters that kind of motivate you at all in your career? And, maybe Miyu's one of them, but you tell me.
친분이 있는 선수는.
So if I were to pick out of people who I have relationships with, people who surround me, it would definitely be Miyu and So-hee Hyun. These two definitely inspire me. But if it's, if I can pick out of people who I don't have relationships, it would be Zhang Weili. How she fights, how she carries herself, how she presents herself, and how she shows herself in general is definitely somebody I look up to as a role model.
Yeah, certainly some very good choices there, Siwoo. And, maybe you can get to train with her someday. That would be very cool indeed. But until then, obviously got the tournament to worry about and get through. And I wish you the best of luck with it. Thank you so much for taking the time here tonight. Greatly appreciated. And I hope the rest of training camp goes smoothly here with the upcoming week and whatnot. But yeah, just a big thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. Always fun to watch you fight, and very much looking forward to this fight. As I said, think it's probably the best matchup in the first round. So thank you so much.
네, 감사합니다.
And last but not least, the shootboxing queen herself, RENA Kubota. All right. Well, it's great to see you again, RENA. Always great getting to chat. I mean, just how are you doing? How are you enjoying the summer?
こちらこそいつもありがとうございます。
So I feel like
そうですね。
Japan is experiencing an early summer this year. It's very hot, very humid, but summer is my favorite season of the year. So it makes the everyday run real enjoyable. So I'm enjoying this summer.
Okay, wow, you enjoyed actually running the heat. I'm a person who I like it when it's colder because it kind of balances things out, but you actually prefer that?
So I used to participate in a shootboxing girls S Cup, which was always held during the summertime. So for me, I would always participate in that. So for me, summertime is all, I have this feeling summer is about working hard, it's about fighting. So that's just, that's just how I feel. And I prefer the heat more than cold, for sure.
All right, yeah, so some familiarity there just kind of brings you back to those times, and I'm sure you could channel that real nicely for the tournament coming up here. But before we get into that, RENA, I want to go back to your last fight because it was a very good one, a very close one. That one, unfortunately, came out with a loss on it, but we've had plenty of time to look back on it now. So your Siwoo Park fight, just kind of how do you reflect on that one and kind of the biggest takeaways? Because again, like I said, a very close fight, and a lot of people thought you won.
そうですね。ちょっと11月
So for me, that fight, I was, I'm not making any excuses here, but for me, I was more focused on the November fight with Miyu. And it was a very quick turnaround, and I felt like I wasn't 100% committed to the Park fight. Don't get me wrong, Park was she's a very tough fighter, and all the credit for her. But for me, I think if I had to give a reason why I lost that fight, I think it was a lack of focus on my end.
負けの原因があるとしたら自分自身の気持ちの持ってき方でしたね。
Okay, all right. And with all that in mind, like there's so many possibilities with the Grand Prix now, and I imagine are you maybe hoping for a rematch, or you just kind of like we'll see just kind of how things shake out?
そうですね。そこまでその執着
for me, I'm not too obsessed with the Park fight. The main reason why I participated in this Grand Prix was to look for the opportunity to fight Izawa. And that was my number one motivation. And it's very hard to predict who's gonna win. So if the opportunity presents itself, if the matchup eventually becomes a revenge match, that's absolutely fine. Because for me, it could be Asakura, it could be Park as well. So, but my main reason why I participated is to go after Izawa.
Of course, makes sense. She is the champ right now. And I mean, this is going to be your second RIZIN Grand Prix, RENA. I mean, the first one was obviously a very big deal and got very close in that one. But just what are kind of your general thoughts on this whole, concept and joining it again? And there won't be, two fights in one night this time. So just kind of what do you make of the whole thing?
そうですね。
So I'm not really thinking about winning this tournament. For me, it's I want to focus one fight at a time, and whatever is provided, whatever fight is in front of me, I'm going to focus on winning that. And like I said, my goal is hopefully if I win this one, I want to fight Izawa next. And obviously, if I focus on the Izawa fight, if I beat her, it'll eventually get me to the finals. So I think for this tournament, focusing on one fight at a time, and I just really need to actually focus on my upcoming fight. So we'll see how it goes. But that's my main focus heading into this Grand Prix.
All right, so I'm curious, is that kind of a different perspective than you had the first time around? Like, how do you compare the two? And, because I was going to also ask, like, is it any extra motivation at all to you after coming so close in the first one? But, judging by that answer, I would assume not so much. So just kind of how is the mindset difference, I guess, compared to the first time around?
So for the
first Grand Prix, I was kind of going with the flow, right? It was just the momentum that got me in there. I was lacking in technique, lacking in experience, still didn't know really what I was doing, but I just went with the flow. But right now I have more experience, I know much more about the sport, and I'm much more confident than I used to be. So, obviously the mindset heading into this Grand Prix is going to be totally different. And this Grand Prix, the level of competition for the international contestants is a lot higher than it was. So, I'm not quite sure if all the Japanese fighters can make it to the semifinals. We just don't know what the results are going to be because the levels become so high. So obviously, the mindset heading into this Grand Prix is totally different.
Of course. And you mentioned the experience right there. Do you believe that it gives you an advantage at all that you have gained that experience now and are going into it a second time compared to maybe some of the others who are lesser experienced, obviously?
Yeah,
it's hard to say because when you look at it, it's just a single fight after another, and you don't really need special experience to just fight one fight. So, but it's not the same as a super fight. So it's just kind of weird. It's a hard question to answer, but in good ways, you get to gather data from each fight and each potential opponent. So that's good. But the truth is, I haven't really thought about it that way. So we'll just keep it there.
All right, certainly fair enough. And you mentioned gathering data. So taking on Anastasia Svetkivska here in the first round, and she's obviously one of the lesser experienced of the bunch. I think she would be the least experienced, actually, of all of you guys that are in the tournament. So I'm curious, like, how much do you actually know about her, and I guess just what are you expecting in this first matchup you have here?
Yeah, so I've heard that she was more of a jiu-jitsu grappler type fighter, but watching some of her fights that are on the internet, she can strike well. She's a decent striker. She looks like she's very tall. She has a long reach. So a lot of the stuff I would have to adjust after I actually meet her. I won't know until I face her.
So with these fighters who are sometimes maybe more unknown than, at least compared to some of the others in the tournament, obviously, do you find them to be maybe oftentimes more dangerous than ones that you can like find out a lot about because of that unknown factor?
I think those unknown factors, the fact that you really don't know what to expect keeps me in check throughout the fight. So it helps me stay focused during the fight. So I think those unknown factors work on a positive note for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally makes sense there. And, it's very interesting, too, about this whole element of the tournament for you, RENA, because this is going to be your first fight actually at 108 pounds since your Kanna rematch, right? And so I'm curious, like, how soon did you know about this opportunity for the preparation of dropping to that weight again? And, like, is that going smoothly, I guess, the weight cut and everything going back down for the first time since, 2018, July 2018?
Yeah, it's been a while since I fought at 49 kilos. But my previous fights, I've been fighting at 50 kilos, which comes out to like 110 pounds. So it's just another kilo that I have to cut. And, weight is coming off fine right now. I do have a nutrition looking after my diet and how to cut weight. So I shouldn't have a problem with it.
All right, well, definitely good to hear. And, RENA, we've talked in the past about the possibility of like this Ayaka Hamasaki fight, who I know you're very close with and whatnot. And I know you've already been asked about it a little bit, but with the possibility of it being kind of more real than it's ever been now with you guys in the same bracket of a tournament and all that, is it like a little bit scary to think about that possibly happening? Or how are you feeling, I guess, just of the whole idea of it actually being closer than ever now?
Yeah, I haven't really put too much thought into it yet because the only way it makes sense for me to fight Hamasaki is in the finals. That's the only way I'll do it. And we still have this fight. We still have the semifinals in September. There's a lot of fights ahead of us in order for me to start even thinking about it. So right now, I have no plans on changing my training schedule. I still train with her. We're still on the same team. So yeah, I haven't really put in any thought into it, and I probably won't until after the September fight, the semifinals.
Yeah, just got to wait and see how things line up. But of course, it's a very interesting element to the whole thing, of course. So, and obviously, Seika is your kind of main target here and the goal that you're after, which totally makes sense that she is the champ and all, as we've talked about. But I haven't heard your thoughts about what you thought of her two performances against Ayaka. Very impressive stuff for anybody to beat Hamasaki, but, just how she did it 2 times in a row. Like, what were your thoughts on, both of those fights?
Yeah, it's she's definitely a new generation, a hot prospect. For me, it was very hard to believe, Hamasaki could lose twice to the same opponent. So I just have to say that she's a very tough fighter and a good fighter, and that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah, and well said. I mean, it is still kind of crazy to think about for sure. And there's so many great matchups here in this first round, and I'm sure that you're very much looking forward to her fight to see how it goes with Laura Fontoura. But there's also Siwoo Park and Kanna, who you're very familiar with too, and then of course Ayaka's fight with Jessica Aguilar. I mean, man, which one are you kind of most excited for as a fan, RENA? They're all very good, including your own, but outside of your own, like, is it the Seika Izawa fight for you that you're most interested in, or are you looking forward to one of the other ones more so?
Like I said earlier, I don't know who to expect to advance. So for me, it's as a fan, I think all the fights are very intriguing, very interesting to watch. And for me, I'll be kicking off the Women's Grand Prix. I'll be fighting the first fight out of all the 4. So I'm actually I'm looking forward to be able to watch the remaining 3 fights after I fight. So I think that's a good thing, and I'm
そう
excited
です
for
ね。
that.
これという試合はないですけど、全部見たいなと思います。
Yeah, that is a kind of a unique aspect to it too, right? Like you get to relax and enjoy things a little bit more than if you were, the main event kind of with the pressure on. I mean, I don't know if you feel pressure anymore at this stage, right? You've been a part of so many big moments, but is that kind of something that, can ease you a little bit, take away, I don't know, maybe any nerves that you could have, just being able to get things out of the way quicker than having to wait till the very end of the night with the main event slot?
まあそうですね。年末は彩香さんの試合
Yeah, so when I fought on New Year's Eve, Hamasaki
ちょっとまあ結果
fought
もあって
before
心
me,
揺さぶら
and
ちょっと
obviously she
精神
she
的ダメー
lost.
ジを受
So
け
that
つつ試合に
affected
臨んだ感
me
じにもなって
mentally
集
heading
中
into
も
my
全
fight.
然
I
でき
couldn't
なかっ
really
たので
100%
今
focus
回
on the
は
fight because
そうですね。
I
自
had to
分
go
だけ
through
に
so
集
much
中し
stuff
て
before my
大
fight.
会まあ
So
メイ
in
ン
that
がそっちじゃないので
in that
もうそこまで
sense, I
大会
think
の
it's
ことも考え
very
ずに本
it's
当
a
に自分の
good
パフォーマン
spot
ス
for
だ
me
けに集中で
because
き
I
る
can
ので
solely focus on my
すごく
performance.
今
I'm
回は
not
い
the
い
main
なと
event fighter, so I don't
思い
have
ます。
to worry about the fight. I don't have to worry about the event being successful as being the main eventer. I can solely focus on my performance, and I think that's a very good environment for me.
Yeah, definitely some very good insights that you have there. And all right, well, we could talk about all this fun stuff forever, Reina, but I think we can wrap up there. Plenty of, great things to be excited about in 2022 as the calendar moves on. But before I do let you go, I gotta get a puppy dog check. How are the dogs doing, and have you added any new members of the family? I forgot to ask earlier.
家族は全然もう本当に
Yeah, so the family is fine. We haven't added new members. All the 4 dogs are lying on the floor right now. This one I have in my
まだ15
my
キロに
hand
もうそろそろなり
is
そうで
almost
す。
around 15 kilograms, which is like 30 pounds, 33 pounds or so. But things are all right. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Good to hear. I mean, is he the oldest one? This one right here?
いや、2番目です。
Second from the top.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Very cool. Such a great little family you got there. I remember when they were all running around like crazy in the back on one of the first interviews we did. So always fun to see them.
ありがとうございます。僕たちの餌代を稼ぐためにも頑張ります。
Thank you very much. I have to work hard to put food on the table for these guys.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Got to keep them all nice and happy. But all right, Reina. Well, I wish you the best of luck with doing that in this upcoming fight. Very much looking forward to it, like we are with all of your fights. So thank you so much for taking the time. As always, it is always a good time, and just a big arigato gozaimashita. And yeah, hope things go very well, and can't wait to see everything that you got going on. So appreciate you.
ありがとうございました。はい、ありがとうございます。Thank you.